We love the throwback vintage sounds of football from yesteryear. You see the vintage pennants behind us. You hear the vintage CBS Sports football music, NFL music. And we love looking inside the Hall of Fame as well. And so it's appropriate to have on with us a guy who's part of football history, not only a Super Bowl champion with the Green Bay Packers, played in 2 of those with the Packers, a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame semifinalist class, which will be voted on coming up here in a couple of weeks as we creep closer to the Super Bowl, and the originator of the Lambeau Leap, All-Pro and Pro Bowl safety LeRoy Butler, joining us this morning on the show. LeRoy, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for joining us, and congratulations on being named a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame. That's very cool.
Thank you so much. I get very emotional even thinking about it. You know, when you're a kid, you think about one day, playing in college football. Then when you play college, you say, okay, I hope to pray one day I could play in the NFL. And then the ultimate goal is to win a championship. And once I did that, when I had a chance at the Hall of Fame, I got very, very excited about it. And hopefully one day it comes true.
So let's go back to the beginning. You're a Jacksonville kid. You end up going to Florida State. My guess is you had never made it to Wisconsin growing up. You get drafted by the Packers after a lifetime in the Sunshine State. Are you going, oh, boy, this is not where I thought I was going to go?
I'll be very honest with you. It's a good question because when I was in geography class, I never even filled out the northern states. I never thought I would go to Iowa or Wisconsin, Michigan. No, it was always Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I never thought it would happen. And I'll be very honest with you. When I got the phone call, my girlfriend asked me, she was like, where's Green Bay? I mean, we were very excited. I was like, like these kids, when I tell them that, they laugh at me because there was no internet. You couldn't just Google it or just call Siri and ask her on your phone. No, it was always word of mouth through relatives. So it caught me by surprise, but I'll tell you what, when I first got there, a guy I've never met took his jacket off and gave it to me. That's when I knew I wanted to be a Packer my whole life.
What a fan base it is. And you guys start building something when you get there. 90, 91, you're sub 500. But then in 1992, Mike Holmgren comes in. Brett Favre takes over. And you guys go 9-7, but you missed the playoffs. Did you feel in 92 like, hey, you know what? We have turned a corner. There's good things ahead.
I'll be honest with you. It was a losing culture. I came from Florida State, winning an average of 11 games. It was difficult for me to understand. I mean, 6-10, 4-12, as you said, 9-7. But it was something growing about when we got Reggie White, the team aspects. Because I'll take you back a little further. We didn't know Mike Holmgren was going to be the coach. We thought it was going to be Bill Parcells, Dick Vermeil. Remember those names? And then they give us a guy who's never head coached before. And Ron Wolf was like, no, I have a plan. I understand what I want to do. He wants to bring this, Bill Walsh mentality, just be fresh on days, not so much padded practices, but I want to be smart and I want to be fast and I want to be very aggressive. And things started to come together in 1995 when we played my childhood team, the Dallas Cowboys, in the NFC Championship game, which we came up short.
So as we speak to LeRoy Butler, Pro Football Hall of Fame semifinalist, Green Bay Packers legend, I want to ask you, what ingredients did Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre and Reggie White bring to the table? If you looked at those 3 guys going forward, what were the ingredients individually that they brought to helping build a champion?
It was something different that I have never thought we would even talk about. It was about the ability that what are we missing? We were trying to put together this great dish, as you talked about. We need a little more salt. Hey, somebody call Andre Rison. We need you. Desmond Howard, we need a little parsley. Can you be the finishing on this little dish? We get him in there. You think about it, that 96 Super Bowl team, it was a bunch of guys from a big melting pot of players to put together some of the best food you've ever tasted. And remember, these people were starving for a championship because it was 30 years from the first time they had won a Super Bowl, with 67 and 68. So that was a 30-year drought that people was just in dire need of something good, and it was the Super Bowl.
Why is playing in Green Bay different?
Because you can be a practice squad player and you're a rock star. You don't have to be Aaron Rodgers. No, LeRoy, Butler, Reggie White. No, you can just be a guy who's on the practice squad. You could be a guy on the scout team, third team. You could be a special teamer. People value that. We have no basketball, no baseball, nothing. It's just Green Bay. And guess what? To boot, you're owned by your neighbor. Your neighbor buys these stock certificates. So they feel like they're owners. They just love the fact that they're the only team in the National Football League that get a chance to see the financials. All the other owners don't have to show anything. People like that kind of transparency, so it's easy to buy in.
You were the originator of the Lambeau Leap, now one of the most famous celebrations in the NFL and NFL history. Do you ever get tired of going back to that day where you got the lateral from Reggie White and jumped into the stands?
Absolutely not. I was wondering when we were going to get to it. No, I'm kidding. I do love it, though. I really do, because it shows how much you love your fans and how much everybody was so overrated to be on the 50, 35-yard line. Where are my tickets? Now it's in the north and south end zone. I got a chance to catch Donald Driver. I got a chance to catch Robert Brooks. You know what? I was sitting there with my nachos, and I got to my seat. I got my beer in my mouth. Lo and behold, I look up, and here's, that's Jordy Nelson. Oh, my goodness. People love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I just love it. And I like to see it around the league as well, see guys jumping up in the stands thanking their fans.
What do you think about the return of Aaron Rodgers? Do you think that this is the start of kind of a new season now, the final 3 weeks for the Packers?
I'll be honest with you. If he plays this week, and there's a good chance he will, he was ready 2 weeks ago. I mean, that's what it is here, that when you talk about Aaron Rodgers, you always talk about, do you have a chance to win? And people felt like the last couple weeks that Hundley, all he had to do is just keeps you afloat before Aaron Rodgers comes back. When he said he was coming back on his Instagram, the state got rejuvenated. I mean, it was like this black cloud lifted off the state of Wisconsin. Everybody's excited now just to have the opportunity to even talk about playoffs after this last 6 or 7 weeks is remarkable. And he also said that he's not coming back to save the Green Bay Packers or whatever. Hey, listen, Aaron, yes, you are. I know you can't say that, but yes, he's coming back. And people feel good about going into the playoffs. They have a chance at it.
LeRoy Butler joins us, former All-Pro safety for the Green Bay Packers. Hey, so let me ask you about a story that I read about your mom emailing John Madden. Is it true that she was upset that he was mispronouncing your first name, LeRoy, instead of LeRoy, and actually emailed John Madden?
Hey, this is a story that's an allegedly told old wives' tale. I get a message from my PR department, hey, your mom's upset. Why? Because I guess they're saying your name wrong. I'm like, okay, but why is that a big deal? No, you don't understand. He has to say your name right. So he said it on the broadcast. Hey, I guess I'm saying Leroy instead of LeRoy. And LeRoy's mom took exception to that, and we still laugh about it. So when people ask me, how do you say your name, they're almost scared and wait for the answer. I say, it's LeRoy. I don't really care. No, if your mom cared, then we care. It was awesome.
Before I let you go, what was it like to share a football field with two other Hall of Famers and now be considered for the Hall of Fame with Reggie White and Brett Favre that you went through so many battles with?
I'll be very honest with you. I mean, that's a barbershop question, because I always wanted people to know that in the 90s, you had 3 teams: the Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers, and the Green Bay Packers. I just wanted people to know that it wasn't just Reggie and just Brett who was able to get that team, turned around. And anytime I can get my name mentioned with those guys, as well as Ron Wolf, who's also a Hall of Famer, it makes me feel good that a little small safety African-American from the projects, who's special education, kids picked on me a lot, kids bullied me, and single parent, in the projects, no air conditioning, to be one day mentioned, to be in the Hall of Fame. It makes me feel real good. It really does. And it makes me feel like my career was worth staying in Green Bay for 12 years, and I just appreciate you even asking. I appreciate that.
You also have been vocal about standing up to bullying and making sure we try to do what's right to eradicate this. Why is that so important to you?
Because I need the kids to know that when they see this jersey, that I've always not had it great. I want them to know that I've gone through some of the tough times that they've gone through. Now I didn't have to go through the social media aspects on it, so it's worse for them. But I also want to know, let them know to put your blinders up. Just try to ignore anything negative and just keep it moving. Don't let it affect you, because at the end of the day, the one thing that kept me going on that playground when they didn't choose me to play in the games, almost like Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. They didn't choose me, but when they needed me, they came to me. I ignored anything negative, and I had a little more tough skin. It's a fine line between the kids picking on you and the kids bullying you, and I knew where that line was. So it was easier for me to understand that one day these kids gonna want my autographs. That kept a smile on my face.
That's great. LeRoy Butler joining us, four-time All-Pro, member of the 1990s All-Decade team for the NFL, Super Bowl champion, originator of the Lambeau Leap, and now Pro Football semifinalist for the Hall of Fame, which is just awesome. LeRoy, this was so much fun. I hope that we can do it again when you get elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I really appreciate you taking time out and everything you do with bullying and everything you do in the community. It's really, really great to have you here on the show, and I thank you.
I appreciate it so much. I look forward to it. And you call anytime you need me. Just call.
All right, man. Thanks so much. LeRoy Butler joining us here on the show. I'll be transparent here. Those Packers teams of the 90s I loved. I had a Robert Brooks jersey. The history of the Packers was always so attractive to me. I grew up in the 80s, and so the Packers were no good. But I was always addicted to NFL films. And so watching the old reel of Vince Lombardi and the Packers sweep and Jim Taylor and Paul Hornung and Ray Nitschke and all those guys, I just grew up mesmerized by. And the first Packers team that I really loved was Don Majkowski, the Magic Man, 89, when they go 10-6 and they miss the playoffs. And I was so into that Packers team, 10-6, and they just seemed to pull a rabbit out of the hat every week. And they played at Lambeau, and it was grass, and it was cold, and it was historic, and you saw the ghosts, and I said, this is so awesome. And then when the Packers started becoming the up-and-coming team of the NFC, as he mentioned, because the Cowboys and the Niners were the old powers, I was all in, man, and I loved watching Reggie White and Brett Favre just had a little something, and they added Andre Rison. And LeRoy Butler was one of those guys that changed the culture and made the Packers really fun. Watching the Lambeau Leap and watching those guys celebrate and watching the fans at Lambeau was a pretty amazing a sight to behold, because now we kind of take for granted, as LeRoy said, that the Packers are good every year. Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, they're in the playoffs, they go to the Super Bowl. But in 1995, 1996, when they're just climbing that mountain, it had been 30 years since really the Packers were very good. And the Packers throughout the 70s, 80s, and then the early 90s were not good. It was like 20-some-odd years of being bad. And then they got that IV drip of success again, and they've pretty much consistently been a champion, or at least a contender to be a champion ever since. What a cool conversation. I love LeRoy Butler.